I revealed a sinister secret haunting my hometown, 7 terrifying tales from cursed internet legends in the quiet suburbs of Maplewood, where the lawns are trimmed just right and every neighbor waves hello. I stumbled upon something that shattered the ordinary facade. I was working 2 jobs, exhausted and desperate to unwind. Instead, I found myself scrolling through a forum filled with chilling accounts of local legends, stories that made my skin crawl. Tales of lurking shadows, sinister figures hiding behind familiar faces, and whispers that echoed in the dark. Would I find a monster lurking beneath the surface of my own life? The first sinister detail struck harder than I could imagine. It started with tales of a man who roamed the night, dressed like a volunteer but lurking behind closed doors, watching, waiting, for what? I shivered, the hair on my arms standing up. Nearby, Mia, my teenage daughter, was texting away, completely unaware of the darkness gathering around us. Little did I know, luck would soon abandon us. Days after my late-night discovery, Mia received a series of ominous messages, ones that mirrored the very legends I had read. "I see you," one chilling text read, and another, "Get ready for a surprise." As I read them over her shoulder, terror settled into my bones. Exhaustion curled my thoughts into a tight knot. This is Maplewood, where crime didn't exist, and yet my instincts screamed otherwise. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system, and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. The more I tried to dismiss it all as overreaction, the more the dread twisted my insides. I started digging deeper into the threads of local incidents: missing pets that once frolicked in backyards, horrid accidents on the pristine streets, and the unsettling feeling of eyes following my every move. Stolen glances from neighbors who should have been friendly turned into furtive watches. Every encounter felt like a performance, the warmth of their smiles abruptly turning cold. Driven by an unquenchable need to protect Mia, I started venturing into Maplewood's unlit alleys and shadowed corners. The familiar streets turned faceless and eerie. The night felt alive, every flickering street lamp amplifying my heart's racing beats. Anxiety clung to the night air, ripe with suspense. Then, I uncovered a connection to a celebrated figure, a charity worker. A hero who'd come to our aid in times of need, yet his name now dripped with the poison of suspicion. Tales of masks worn by wolves cloaked in sheep's wool flooded my thoughts. The closer I got to revealing this truth, the more the stakes escalated. Was he another part of Maplewood's bone-chilling puzzle, or was I destined to uncover something far worse? As I pieced together the fragments, my world trembled. A knock shattered the silence at the witching hour. A voice from the shadows called out, "It's just me, Sarah. I brought something special for Mia." My pulse quickened. I could feel it, the dread that had been creeping in now crawled under my skin. Just a neighbor, or something more sinister? I glanced towards Mia, and in that moment, I knew. The legends weren't just stories, they were warnings. The worst part? You never realize the monster you fear the most is already at your door. The knock echoed like a death knell. My heart slammed against my ribs, frantic and wild. I turned to Mia, who had paused her banter, a frown replacing her previous nonchalance. The fear in my eyes tangled with hers, a shared understanding that something was terribly wrong. "Stay back," I whispered, my voice trembling. I edged toward the door, every nerve ending firing off alarms. The world outside had unfurled into a dark mystery under the night sky, and I felt the weight of every shadow pulling me toward an unspeakable truth. "It's just Mr. Davis," Mia said, her voice rising with confused innocence. The name lingered like a thick fog hanging in the air. A quaint figure, sure, the volunteer who offered to mow our lawn last summer, a fitting participant in Maplewood's charming facade. But a chill snaked up my spine. He was the one I now feared most. "Don't open the door," I hissed, dread clawing at my throat. But it was too late. I had barely muttered those words when the door creaked open, revealing Mr. Davis standing there with a wide grin. It shattered any remaining traces of comfort. The moonlight cast an otherworldly glow on his face, accentuating his features in a way that felt jagged and wrong. "Mia. Just the girl I wanted to see." he exclaimed, taking a step over the threshold without invitation. My body moved, an instinct born of primal fear, and I stepped between her and him. "What is going on?" I demanded, summoning a brave front, though my insides squirmed. "Just delivering a little surprise," he said, leaning forward as if sharing a delightful secret. In his hands, he held a small, unmarked box, a gift wrapped with frayed twine. "Thought the two of you could use a little cheer. Things have been so dreary lately." His voice trailed off, a hint of something darker lurking behind the facade. "No, thank you. We're fine," I replied sharply. But the words tasted like ash in my mouth. I was not convincing myself, let alone him. "Oh, come now," he persisted, his smile tightening, becoming something else entirely. "Just a little something for Mia. It can be our little secret." The way he said secret sent cold tendrils of fear curling around my spine. The box seemed to pulse with a somber energy, beckoning. I could almost hear it whispering an inaudible chorus echoing the messages Mia had received. Every hair on my neck prickled, every instinct screamed for me to flee. I felt reality shifting, a tapestry of dread weaving tighter around us. "Mom, what is he talking about?" Mia's voice cracked, her innocence sweet and vulnerable. I turned to her, wanting to shield her, wanting to scream at her to run, yet the weight of the moment kept me frozen. "That's enough, Mr. Davis. Leave. Now," I ordered, summoning whatever courage I had left. A flicker of anger crossed his eyes but was quickly masked with the charm he wore as a cloak. What was buried beneath that mask? He stepped back, the facade slipping for just a moment. "You don't know what you're messing with, Sarah. But you will soon enough." With that cryptic warning, he turned and disappeared into the dark, just like the tales had foretold. My breath came in sharp gasps, panic surging through me, the reality of our isolation sinking in. What was truly happening here? What was this secret? As I closed the door, locking it with trembling hands, I felt the world close in around us, the friendly veneer of Maplewood peeling away to reveal sinister truths concealed beneath. Mia trembled beside me, her face pale, eyes wide. "What do we do now?" A shadow flickered outside the window, and I bent down to pull the curtain shut. The unease was palpable, a heavy cloak wrapped around us like an unfriendly embrace. I opened my mouth to speak but couldn't find the words then. A sudden sound shattered the suffocating silence, a rustling from the back of the house. Someone or something was in our yard. The sense of being watched clawed at my sanity, urging me to investigate, yet the dread rooted me in place. Something was coming for us. Something that lived in the space between safety and nightmare. "Stay close," I whispered, my voice barely breaking through the heavy air. As I edged toward the hallway, I wondered if this was just the beginning of Maplewood's dark secrets unearthing themselves. The night has only begun to unravel its horrors. What would the shadows reveal next? The rustling grew louder, a cacophony cutting through the night like a serrated knife. My stomach twisted into knots as I strained to hear over the pounding of my heartbeat. Was it an animal? Or something far worse? My instinct shouted for me to retreat, yet every fiber of my being told me to protect Mia at all costs. "Mia," I said softly, keeping my voice low. "Stay in the living room. Lock the door behind you." Her eyes widened with confusion, yet fear anchored her in place. "But now." It came out more forcefully than I intended. I watched as she backed away slowly, uncertainty and terror swirling in her expression. I couldn't blame her, she was just a kid after all. Once sure she was out of sight, I crept towards the kitchen, a familiar territory clouded now with an unfamiliar dread. Each footstep felt heavy against the floorboards, as though I were trekking through molasses. The front door stood like a sentinel behind me, the barrier between the nightmare outside and our fragile little world. There it was again, a louder rustle this time, closer, more determined. I froze, praying my heartbeat would slow, praying whatever had lurked beyond would retreat. I peered through the kitchen window, the glass reflecting a pale face, a haunting mirror of my own fear, and nothing. Just shadows dancing in the moonlight. I turned, my back brushing against the rough counter. Should I call for help? Who would come? The neighbors were just as confused by the odd occurrences. The very idea of involving anyone made my gut twist again, the vague suspicion that they, too, could be in on whatever this was weighing heavily on me. Then I heard it, a faint whisper, riding on the wind. It was unintelligible, like a taunting song snaked through the air just for me. I inhaled sharply, the air thick with foreboding. Sarah, the voice seemed to beckon, low and childlike. My blood ran cold. Mia? I called out, but the room swallowed my fear-drenched voice. I turned abruptly, the kitchen swallowing me in sudden darkness as the lights flickered ominously. God, what was happening? Should I look or hide? The whispers intensified outside, like many voices merging to form a chilling symphony. I squeezed my eyes shut, fighting against the urge to cry out. They were there, things beyond the veil of the world I understood. Shadows haunting Maplewood, claiming souls left to flounder in the night. Crack. A sound replaced the whispering. It was a sharp, distinct noise. I flinched at the impact, echoed through the house, like ice shattering under a hammer. Who's there? I yelled, clutching the edge of the countertop. Silence. The rushing sound of my heartbeat drowned out everything, almost daring me to reveal myself. In the silence that followed, I heard something else: laughter. It was soft at first, almost innocent, but twisted, tainted by malice. The laughter crawled up my neck, igniting every hair. It echoed, winding around me, and for a moment, I was frozen in terror. Thinking quickly, I glanced towards the back door. Dreadful ideas grounded in survival began flooding my mind, but at what cost? I didn't want to leave Mia alone, but I couldn't let whatever was lurking come any closer. As I began to edge towards the back, another crash came from the front of the house, the front door. It splintered, sending shards flying. Sarah! Mia screamed behind the closed living room door. Mia, hold on! I shouted, fueled by adrenaline. Barely thinking, I stumbled to the front of the house, heart racing. I had to know what was coming for us. I steeled myself and opened the door, and then, the shadow surged in, taking form just as Mr. Davis had. The darkness carried a life of its own, a chilling breath curling around me. Something was wrong. Terribly wrong. As I stood in the doorway, the distant laughter morphed into chaos, drowning me in a sea of desperation and dread. What had I unleashed? What horrors awaited beyond the shadows? And then all at once, I realized, every choice I made that night led us closer to the brink of a nightmare we might never escape. But what lay behind the darkness? What had been revealed, teetering on the edge of my understanding? The shadows shifted, whispering again, and I could feel them reach out for Mia. What would I do next? The shadows surged forward, twisting and writhing like serpents seeking warmth. They flowed over the threshold, a dark tide pooling around my feet. I instinctively stepped back, but the cloying darkness reached for me, tendrils brushing against my skin like icy fingers. Mia! I shouted, my voice barely piercing the consuming dark. Each syllable felt like a desperate gasp. I could barely think. What if those shadows had come for her? What if they were hungry? The laughter morphed, a chilling growl that vibrated through my chest, and I backed into the kitchen. I had to think, I had to act quickly. The back door was still an escape, but the thought of leaving Mia behind tightened my throat. Stay back! I yelled, pulling a kitchen knife from the block, a futile weapon against whatever hunted us. My hands trembled, slick with sweat as dread clotted my throat. Suddenly, the laughter stopped, replaced by a whisper, a single voice cutting through the chaos. Sarah had called again, echoing too sweetly in the darkness. My heart shattered. It sounded just like Mia. I pressed a fingertip against my ear, straining to hear through the growing cacophony. Please, come off. The voice twirled around me like a noxious fog. Please, I need you. No. Stay away from her. I screamed, throwing the knife into the impenetrable dark just as I backed toward the living room door. The air weighed heavy with shadows, the smell of damp earth, decay, and despair surrounding me. I edged around the kitchen, glancing over my shoulder as I darted toward the living room. Surely Mia was safe in there. The thought of her caught in this nightmare fueled my feet, propelling me through the oppressive gloom. A sudden crash shattered my focus, and I swiveled, heart racing. The living room door splintered, the wood cracking under an unseen force. My stomach lurched. I was too late. The dark shadows surged again, closing in, hungry. Mia! I cried out again, terror ripping through me. My eyes darted around the room, no sign of her. Just shadows dancing against the walls, flickering in the flickering light of the kitchen. Then I heard Mia's small voice, stifled and afraid, "Sarah, mommy." She called, the words so small, so lost in the chaos. Before I could answer, I saw a shape materialize from the corner of the room, hazy and indistinct. My body flooded with instinct. I had to get to her. I lunged forward, desperate to reach the living room door. In a flash, the shadows pressed harder against me, whispering secrets of despair, a harmony of silent screams begging me to join them. Something cold rushed over my arm, wrapping tightly around my wrist, something alive. I jerked away, panic setting in as I stumbled back into the kitchen. I had the knife still, and I twisted around, ready to defend myself as the shadows writhed, the echoes of laughter growing into cruel jeers. They were mocking me. They wanted me to fail. Let her go. I shouted, my voice cracking with fear, the knife poised in front of me, useless but my last hope. But their laughter turned into a chorus of hisses, swirling louder, drowning my voice. They swarmed like angry wasps, their chilling whispers pulling me into their depths. Join us, no! I screamed, swinging wildly. From somewhere in the maelstrom, Mia's voice pierced through the suffocating darkness again. Help me, Sarah! Adrenaline surged through my veins. I had to fight. Mia, I'm coming. I cried, rallying every ounce of strength I had. With one fierce push, I broke through the tendrils that encased me and charged into the living room, fear and fury intertwining. I had to reach her. But the moment I stepped through the door, the lights flickered and went out, plunging me into a pitch-black void. My heart pounded in my ears as the laughter picked up again, surrounding me, slithering under my skin. Where was she? Desperation clawed at my mind, and then suddenly, silence fell like a heavy curtain. I strained to listen, my breath hitching. There was someone standing in front of me. Mia? I whispered, the darkness swallowing my voice whole, the silence stretched as I struggled to make sense of the shadow before me. Then the shape took a step forward, and I felt icy fingers brush my face. Mommy, it whispered, and my heart plummeted. What once sounded sweet now twisted like a dagger. I backed away, reality distortion gnawing at my sanity. This wasn't her. What was I facing? Mommy! A voice echoed just behind me. A mirror image of Mia stepped forward from the shadows while the first voice beckoned me closer. I was surrounded and utterly trapped, with panic surging. I screamed, not her. Not my Mia. But in that moment, I realized the truth, they were feeding off my fear. Was I already too late to save her? And then I realized, what if I became the darkness? What would I have to sacrifice to bring back my little girl? What would I become? The darkness pulsed around me, an alive thing that seemed to breathe in rhythm with my pounding heart. The air was thick with an unnatural chill, and the shadows twisted into grotesque shapes, distorting my perception of reality. I forced myself to breathe, to think. I had to remember that these beings, whatever they were, thrived on fear. I wouldn't let them take me. Mommy! The voice echoed again, and this time it split my heart. The second Mia, clad in shadows and despair, watched me with wide, pleading eyes. It was so eerily similar, her face almost the same yet devoid of the warmth I loved. A part of me wanted to believe, but now wasn't the time for hope. It was the time for choice. I gripped the knife tighter, my knuckles white, and I took a step back, measuring my breaths. Every flicker of darkness felt like a whisper, soaking into my skin, reaching for a piece of my sanity. But I had to act. Whereas the real Mia? I shouted into the void, my voice echoing buckshot across the room. Show her to me. The two figures started to merge, as though they were fluid, the shadows swirling around them like mist. The original Mia's features distorted as the dark copy loomed closer, and electrifying dread crawled over my skin. Every ounce of love I felt turned to ash in my throat. With a sudden strike, the room erupted into chaos. The shadows grew arms, claws stretching toward me with wild abandon. I swung the knife, right into the thick of it, desperately slashing in every direction. Each stab met only wisps of darkness, my breath becoming ragged. Sarah! A new voice cut through the cacophony, a voice that sent a jolt through me. It was Mia, fierce and strong, emerging from the throbbing darkness. I blinked, my chest tightening as the dark likeness flickered like a dying flame. Mia, hold on. I shrieked as I lunged, barreling through the mass, knifing through the shadows. The energy crackled around me, and suddenly it was just her and me. The warm glow that radiated from my daughter reminded me of home. "Mommy, behind you!" she cried, and I turned just in time to see the darkness reforming, coiling like a serpent preparing to strike. Instinctively, I swung again, but the blade met resistance, the shadows tangling around it like quicksand. I felt the tugging pressure tighten around me, stinging with ice. "No, no, no!" I screamed, frustration boiling over with desperation. I threw all my weight forward, breaking the hold just enough to stumble toward Mia, but then shadows erupted from the walls, filling every inch of the space. They were alive, a sentient mass of malevolence that wrapped tighter around me, soaking up every flicker of light. "Mommy!" Mia's voice broke through, strained and frantic. I could see her now, standing just beyond a wall of darkness that was trembling under its own weight. It wanted to keep her, it wanted to keep us both. "Stay behind me!" I shouted, lunging forward. But the shadows enveloped me fully now, a cold blanket of despair, making my heart race with fear and uncertainty. Just as hope began to shimmer in my chest, the laughter erupted again, wrapping around my mind like a vice. "Join us!" the chorus of voices taunted, rising and falling as if they had all the time in the world. "Get out!" I howled, my voice igniting the shadows with an electric rage that surprised even me. "You don't own me!" There was a pulse of silence, a split second before the shadows recoiled. And in that moment, clarity pierced through my fear. I could see something, a glimmer flickering in the depths of the looming dark. "Mommy!" Mia's voice wailed again, hopeless. The sound shattered me. With a raw strength coursing through me, I charged, knife raised, determined to fight for my daughter. But as I dove into the thick blackness, the shadows twisted and curled, mocking my desperation. A blinding pain shot through my shoulder, and something sharp pierced my side. I gasped. What was I fighting? A searing moment of realization gripped my heart. What if defeating the darkness means becoming it? I thought, as wave after wave of negativity surged within me. My thoughts spiraled in freefall. I was trapped in a battle of souls. Right and wrong, salvation and sacrifice swirled around me, creating an entangled knot. And then I remembered, what if Mia was lost because of a choice I made? Was I as much a part of the darkness as the shadows that threatened to consume us both? I glanced toward my daughter, her face filled with sheer determination. "Mia!" I screamed, but more screams echoed back, looping into one another. What if my love wasn't enough to save her? "Mia!" I yelled again, and a flicker of hope sparked inside me. Something had to give. In that moment, I realized I had only one chance left. I dropped the knife, letting it clatter to the floor as the shadows danced and roared. Let her go. Take me instead. But what if my sacrifice was all for nothing? What if darkness and light were one and the same? And just then, the shadows stilled, awaiting my answer. My heart thudded against my chest like a drum. The shadows hung in the air, silent and expectant, as if they were waiting for the currency of my fear to fill the empty space. I felt the cold tendrils wrap tighter around me, creeping along my arms and squeezing my throat until each gasp felt like a desperate plea for air. "Mommy!" Mia's voice broke through the haze, a sweet sound mingling with all the malevolence. I had to save her, no matter what it took. But I didn't know how, didn't know if this was even real or a nightmare made flesh. "I'll take your place. I'll be one of you," I cried out, the words tasting like metal on my tongue. The darkness seemed to quiver, hungry yet cautious, as if processing my offer. "Trust us," the chorus of voices spoke in unison, dripping with seductive malice. "Join us, Sarah. Give in." "No!" I screamed, finding a flicker of defiance. "I refuse." My own voice, full of pain, shocked me. Did I even know what I was refusing? What if they were right? In that moment of hesitation, shadows surged. They slipped past my clenched fists, racing toward Mia. I tore my gaze from the mass of darkness to look at my daughter, her eyes wide with terror as she backed away, swallowed by the darkness encroaching around her. "Mia!" I lunged, a primal instinct driving me forward. The shadows hissed, retreating for an instant, and for a breathless moment, there seemed to be space. It was all too brief, but it was enough to see Mia's face, glowing with fear, with disbelief. Then came the laughter, that dreadful sound springing from the mass like a burst of venom. "You can't save her, Sarah," they muttered, taunting. "You're part of this now." I felt the truth in their words crawling under my skin. Perhaps I was too late, too far gone to turn back. A shadow clawed its way to my knee, and I staggered. Panic washed over me as I feared I'd be lost to them, just another soul trapped in the endless grasp of darkness. But another voice broke through Mia's, small and tremulous, "Mommy, please. Fight." The love surged anew, twisting through me like an undeniable force. I pushed against the dragging weight of despair that threatened to consume me. My memories slashed through the fog swirling around me, piercing with joy. The glitter of her laughter, the tiny hands that once pulled me back from the brink of despair, filled my mind. I had to protect that joy. "No!" I howled into the swirling mass. "I am not yours to take." The shadows writhed as if stung, hissing, recoiling from my sudden strength. They were shaken, or was it just an illusion? "Mia!" I cried again, and this time it felt different. "Hold on, just a little longer." I charged forward, feeling the waves of darkness whip around me. I couldn't stop now. The love within me ignited a flame that pushed back against the void. As I stumbled closer to where Mia stood, I felt an urgency rising. But as I reached out, the shadow lunged. I met it head-on, colliding against its tangible form. There was a sensation, like static electricity, as it hit me square in the chest. "No," I gasped, feeling the piercing chill settle into my bones. This wasn't just a battle of flesh and blood. I could feel memories tugging at me, old fears, buried guilt. It tugged at the very core of who I was, pulling me into confusion. And just then, as despair threatened to overwhelm me, I remembered the stories that haunted this place, the tales of those who had faced the darkness before. They hadn't been heroes, they'd made choices, terrible choices. What if the answer lay there, buried in those tales? "Mommy! They're lying. Don't believe them." Mia's shout broke through my thoughts, grounding me. She was my anchor, tethering me to reality. "And this?" I snarled, rage intertwining with the green tendrils of hope. The shadows shrieked as they seemed to flinch. And in that moment, I pulled what felt like remnants of my soul together, the last threads of my identity, wrapping them tightly around Mia, around each precious memory we built. Then it happened. The darkness began to flicker. I felt my connection to it tightening, but I also felt it unraveling. Would I survive this? Would we both? As the shadows swirled, threatening to consume me whole, I swore I saw a way out. But was I prepared to take it? And before I could process what this meant, I heard them whisper it was an echo tinged with fear. Let go, but what if letting go was the only path to salvation? Light shattered through the suffocating veil of darkness, casting airy shapes on the floor like desperate hands reaching out. My heart raced as the shadows blinked, caught in disbelief, as if my defiance had unleashed some forbidden light. But it flickered, fading, unstable. I tightened my grip on the last vestiges of my will. I could feel Mia's warmth pulsing in my chest, that precious fire ignited by the memories of holding her, hearing her laugh. "Mia!" I shouted, straining against the pull of darkness, pulling against the weight of despair dragging at my limbs. "We're getting out of here." The shadows hissed, their whispers slithering back into my mind. "Join us, Sarah. You already belong. Let the pain go." "No!" I screamed, my voice cracking from the strain. "I won't. Not while I still breathe." But in the back of my mind, doubt crept in. Their words clawed at the threads of my resolve. What if this was all a game? What if I was already trapped? I could feel my strength waning, the fire dimming. I took a step back, wrestling with uncertainty, while Mia's terrified face swam closer in the haze. Suddenly, the shadow surged forward, swift and relentless. I staggered, my back hitting a wall of cold stone. With a gasp, I looked up to see the darkness shift and pulse, an ominous cloud beckoning. They were drawn to my fear, feeding off it like a hungry predator. "Mommy, please." Mia's voice echoed, shaking me from the trance. I turned to face her. Those wide, innocent eyes were bathed in light, almost a beacon in the engulfing blackness. "Yes," I shouted, grasping the sparkle of hope. "We'll fight together." I pushed against the wall of shadows, channeling the fierce love I had for my daughter. I pressed onward until I felt the pressure lighten for an agonizing moment. Just beyond the veil, I glimpsed a shimmering doorway, a flicker of reality trying to pierce through, but then a shriek of fury erupted from the mass of darkness, echoing like the cries of tormented souls. "You think you can escape?" they howled, their voices a wicked cacophony. "This is your destiny. You belong to us." Swiping my hand against the darkness, I fought back. "No. You won't take us." The air crackled with resistance, as pain echoed through my fingertips where the shadows came into contact with my skin, yet, the dark laughed, cruel and mocking, the sound writhing around me. "Silly woman, you have already sacrificed your safety." What did they mean? It slithered into me, the realization, sharp and cold. My past choices, the moments of weakness, were what had drawn me here. I remembered nights spent in fear, the dread of losing control, drowning in sorrow I thought I could bury. Had I unwittingly fed this horror? "Mia!" I reached for her again, but the shadows tightened around us, blocking my way. The dread rose like bile in my throat as I realized they were feeding off my guilt, my shame. "Stay away from her!" I roared, a fresh wave of determination surging. With every ounce of strength, I forced my hand through the darkness, igniting memories of laughter, sunlit afternoons, tight hugs. The shadows screamed, recoiling from the warmth state of love. But what would it cost me? Each memory burned like a blazing inferno. I could feel my spirit dimming, unraveling as the confrontation intensified. I fought harder, each pulse of light drew a cruel counterattack from the dark, twisting and consuming the edges of who I was. In a final desperate clawing towards Mia, a voice broke through, the voice of my mother. "You can free yourself, darling. You have to let go." The choice hung thick in the air. Letting go, what did that mean? Was I willing to abandon the remnants of my own heart? And in that moment of agonizing clarity, I felt the gravitational pull of the door beyond the chaos. A sliver of hope, a chance at freedom, a chance to save Mia, but it required a sacrifice. The shadows taunted, swarming closer, as I held my breath. To save her, I had to confront my own buried demons. "Are you ready?" they whispered, anticipation thickening the air. And then I saw it, a soft wisp of light threading through the fury around us. Was I strong enough to face my own darkness? Or would the shadows consume our last chance? The shadows recoiled, their twisted forms writhing back as if the light had struck them. I felt a flicker of triumph, but fear sat heavy in my gut. I knew they'd regroup. The ominous whispers clawed at my sanity. "You can't fight what you are. You are darkness." "Mia, hold on," I cried, my voice barely making it through the suffocating pressure. "We're almost there." In that instant, I could sense the looming presence of the darkness, an oppressive weight pressing against my chest. The air thickened, stinging my lungs, and I could barely breathe. I focused on the vision of the doorway, a radiant specter against the storm, but what would it mean to move through that light? Would it save us, or lead us deeper into despair? My heart raced as the conflicting thoughts made my head spin. Memories surged again, each smile from Mia, those moments of joy were my lifeline, yet they felt frail and flickering like the dying flame of a candle in a windstorm. "Let it go, Sarah." The shadows hissed, laughter mingling with the sound of teeth gritting like gears sticking into rust. "Surrender. It's only pain that binds you." I shuddered. Their truths felt too close, too familiar. I had lost so much, a life full of love, laughter. How could I bear the weight and banish it all? But I couldn't allow despair to swallow me. With renewed urgency, I pushed forward, wrapping Mia's light around me like armor. The shadows lunged again, forming claws and fangs, grotesquely weaving through their dark ranks as they surged. The air turned bitter cold, and I felt the tingles of panic creep back in. "No! We are not your prey," I yelled, Gripping my identity tightly as I roared with the raw energy only love could awaken, the shadows faltered, drawing back as I pierced through like a knife through fog. "Mia, stay close." I caught a flicker of her smile, bright and unwavering in the chaos. Each second felt like eternity as I charged toward the doorway, the wisp of light beckoning louder, more desperately now. Then a deep growl erupted. The shadows morphed, coalescing with terrifying speed. They were closing in, and with a bone-rattling screech, they lunged into a mass of swirling darkness. They were no longer hiding. They wanted to consume us. "Mommy!" Mia screamed, her voice shaking me from the edge of my resolve. They were hungry. Every shred of light was a meal, every stain of doubt a feast. "No! I won't let you." I fought back with renewed energy, my pulse roaring in my ears, matching the cacophony around us. As I lunged for the light, a force knocked me down, sending me sprawling across the cold stone. Scratches and claws knotted my skin, pain exploded through my body, but I couldn't stop. I crawled toward Mia. "I'm coming." The darkness rumbled with laughter, feeling the shift with satisfaction. "You think you can save her? You have nothing left." I clenched my teeth, driven by one last hope. I remembered her laughter on sunny days, the warmth of her hand in mine. I fought against the rising tide of despair. "Focusing every ounce of love," I screamed, "you will not take her. This ends now." The shadows hissed, their forms contorting as they faltered just for a moment. I summoned everything inside me, igniting the memories of love that had dwindled into flickers. The pain was hell, but it was nothing compared to the thought of losing Mia. As I hurled myself toward the shimmering doorway, I felt a crack, a spell breaking. Light poured in, washing over me, pushing back the darkness with furious intensity. The shadows screeched in fury, a frenzied animal trying to claw back control, and then it happened. As I crossed the threshold, a shriek echoed so full of rage and desperation, it sent shivers racing down my spine. Had I freed us or simply opened a new door to horror? A chilling thought gripped me. What lay on the other side? My breath caught as I stepped forward, not knowing if this was liberation or the beginning of something far worse. Was I prepared for what awaited, or had I just traded one prison for another? The moment my foot hit the ground beyond the threshold, it felt like stepping into a vacuum. The bright light I anticipated faded, replaced by an unsettling twilight that turned everything a shade of gray. I looked around, desperately hoping for salvation, but what met my eyes was staggering, a sprawling, forsaken landscape where shapes twisted unnaturally, as if molded by nightmares. "Mia?" I called, my voice echoing in the eerie stillness. The silence hung heavily, only broken by a faint rustle of wind that held whispered secrets. My heart pounded against my ribcage, thrumming with dread. "Where is she?" "Mommy!" Her voice shot through the haze, a fragile lifeline. "Mia!" I sprinted, each step pushing deeper into the desolation. Shadows loomed larger here, stretching across the land like sinister fingers clawing for something they lost. I stumbled, trying to regain my bearings, but the ground squelched beneath my feet, sticky as if the earth itself was bleeding. I spotted her. A flicker of light ahead, my daughter's radiance cutting through the gloom. I half ran, half fell toward it. But with each stride, a deep, guttural growl rumbled from behind me. The shadows were prowling again, maddeningly close, their breath hot against my neck. Fear turned to panic. I couldn't lose her again. Not now. "Mia!" I screamed, desperation clawing at my throat. The thrill of light swayed closer, but I felt the darkness, a smothering weight, pull me back. "Run!" Came a voice, not dogged, echoing from the shadows, but clear and vibrant, the sweet yet piercing call of Mia. I pushed forward, heart in throat, closing the distance. What should be been mere steps turned into a desperate marathon, the shadows transformed into predators, snapping and gnashing, ready to feast. I felt the prickle of claws graze my back, the breath of the void whispering that surrender was inevitable. The illusions were relentless, echoing my own fears. "You're nothing, alone in this dark, shut up." I hissed back, fueled by the memory of Mia's joyful laughter slicing through their venomous taunts. Then I saw her beyond the veil of fear, her light was brighter than it had ever been. I grabbed at the last remnants of hope. "I am your mother. You are my light.
Come to me.
Mia's voice rose in confidence, urging me toward her shimmering form. Finally, I broke through the suffocating shadows, wrapping my arms around her, enveloping us both in a glow of warmth and love.
It felt electrifying.
But as I held onto her, I noticed the shadows circling hungrily, almost frantically, like wasps drawn to a flame.
This isn't safe.
I urged, but already the shadows began to quake, a storm of fury unleashed. They lunged at us, fury igniting like a wildfire. I can protect you, Mia whispered, but uncertainty laced her words, and suddenly the light began to wane. Mia, don't! The shadows lunged forward, a wave of dark fury crashing into us. I felt both terror and love collide, the struggle to keep us alive engulfing my senses.
Everything flickered, reality shaking around us.
As we stood together, the exhilaration turned to icy dread. With every heartbeat, the shadows closed in. My feet were rooting into a fabric of night that wanted to swallow us whole.
Did we merely quench their hunger, or had we stumbled into a stomping ground far worse?
With a deafening roar, the shadows surged forward in a chaotic rush, and just as they reached us, an unholy scream echoed through the ether, chilling my bones.
What was unleashed?
Were we truly lost, or had we just ignited a darkness even more profound? Then, a chilling voice broke through the chaos.
Welcome to your true home. Darkness pressed in.
The fight was far from over. The air around Sarah and Mia hummed with an eerie stillness, amplifying the beating of Sarah's heart in her chest. She held Mia close, feeling the warmth radiate between them, a barrier against the chaos that churned around them. But as the shadows howled, swirling like a tempest, the connection began to fray, threads of light flickering like dying embers.
No! Stay with me!
Sarah pleaded, her voice choked with desperation, and yet her grip around Mia tightened instinctively.
Suddenly, the shadows clawed forward, shrieking as if the darkness itself bore witness to their desperation. You belong with us!
They howled, their voices a cacophony of deceit and doom.
No!
Sarah cried defiantly, the familiar sense of protective rage fueling her.
You will not take her!
With a shuddering breath, she drew on the love that surged between them. It was a force that could not be snuffed out, an ember that refused to die.
We are stronger than this!
She yelled, and an unfamiliar strength swelled inside her, igniting a fierce glow around them.
The darkness hesitated, recoiling as if struck. Sarah stepped forward, her gaze unwavering, eyes fierce. You don't own us!
She declared boldly, forcing her way through the maelstrom of shadow, pulling Mia along.
You'll never own what you can't touch! She felt it, then a shift.
The shadows began to falter, almost as if they could sense the shift in Sarah's resolve. With a sharp inhale, Sarah gathered every cherished memory of Mia, every laugh, every hug, every moment of pure joy. She let the memories wash over her, not out of nostalgia, but as weapons.
Look at her!
She shouted furiously, holding Mia's face so that the glowing light refracted through their linked hands.
Look at what you fear most!
A pulse of energy shot through them, illuminating the darkness and making it flinch back.
Mia, understanding, nodded. We're together!
She cried, her voice ringing out with innocence and bravery. As they pressed forward, darkness began to writhe and twist, hissing and snapping.
The shadows clawed at them, but Sarah was relentless.
We are more than your nightmares.
We are not afraid. In that moment, something beautiful happened.
The shadows recoiled, struck by the intensity of love and unity between them. They writhed, howling more ferociously than before, yet it had transformed from threatening to desperate. The swirling mass of darkness splintered, turbulent and chaotic, revealing hints of glimmering light beneath.
A path unfolded, shrouded yet inviting, pulling them toward an escape that shimmered with possibility. Mommy, let us go!
Mia urged, her voice filled with both terror and excitement. With one last push, Sarah gripped Mia's hand tightly and together they broke through, rushing toward the glimmering threshold. The shadows lunged forward but crashed against an invisible barrier, howling with fury.
Run!
Sarah shouted as they raced forward. The weight of shadows seemed to drag at her, but with Mia's light blazing bright beside her, it was as if they were flying through a storm. Finally, in a blinding flash, they crossed into a beam of pure light. The world shifted, color splashed back into reality, and they stumbled into a quiet, sunlit garden. The shadows collided against the light, and their screams faded into oblivion. Breathing heavily, Sarah and Mia collapsed onto the soft grass, hearts racing, laughter bubbling uncontrollably. They had emerged, victorious yet breathless. Sarah looked down at Mia, the little girl who had always been her heart. "We made it," she gasped, tears of relief welling in her eyes. "We're safe." Mia smiled, her warmth enveloping Sarah. "I knew we could do it, Mommy." Both women sat wrapped in the beauty of their freedom. For the first time since fear had clawed its way into their lives, a serene stillness swept over them, but the fight wasn't over yet. They had faced the darkness, but the scars remained etched in their hearts, and they knew, just knew, that the echoes of those shadows lingered still. They would need to speak out about their experiences to keep the darkness at bay, to help others who might still be trapped. "Let us tell everyone what really happened," Sarah said softly, brushing her daughter's hair away from her face, resolve building within her. "So they're ready when the darkness comes." "Yeah," Mia agreed. "We'll help make them brave." And with that bond of defiance and empowerment, they stood side by side against whatever Maplewood's shadows could conjure next, not as mere victims, but as warriors. Their laughter and love would form the bulwark against despair, and as they began walking home, side by side, they felt the shadows retreat, defeated, knowing they were stronger together. But for now, they savored the light, the newfound freedom from what would haunt them no longer. And there it lay, a testament to love, the truest light against the encroaching dark. If you enjoyed this thrilling conclusion, this is your moment to show your support. You need to subscribe immediately to our channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories. Smash that like button now to help feed the algorithm, and don't forget to flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about this ending. Tell us what you think, make your voice heard. Finally, don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Real fans understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions.